What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy Post-Game Live, part of the 617 podcast, and proudly brought to you by Crowworthy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in. Hopefully you were joining us either on Twitter or YouTube. We are streaming live from both of them. If you're joining us from YouTube, feel free to go ahead and comment. Go ahead and leave us some quotes. Leave us something you want to talk about. You got something to say. You don't like what we got to say. We got a special guest here. You want to tell them something? Go ahead. Put it in the comments. Join us on YouTube. You can find us at Green Envy Pod on Twitter. We're going to be live streaming from there. So come on, join the fun. Get in here with us. Joining me as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. Say what up, Greg.
What's going on, everybody? How we doing today?
Let's go. And we got a special guest here, a guest that you all know. He's our podcasting cousin. We've been trying to make this happen for a while here. He's our cousin that we've been meaning to get him over to the dark side of the podcast where we can let the expletives fly. And he's coming on a great time where the Celtics pick up a big matinee win. Joining us from the Celtics blog podcast and a litany of other great Celtics coverage and NBA coverage, it's the one and only Adam Taylor. What up, Adam?
That was one of the best intros anyone's ever given me, man. I appreciate it. What's good, everybody? I mean, if you want to say something nice to me in the comments, then go ahead. If you want to say something nasty to me in the comments, then please refrain from doing so because, you know, why would you want to be mean to me? I just don't understand it. You guys, what's going on, man? I've been dying to jump on here and let some expletives out of there. Is that the right word?
Yeah, expletives. Yeah, that's right, man.
We're
locked and loaded today. You know, it's funny for those of you listening to us, whether it's live or on the podcast the next day. You know, obviously the three of us get together. We call ourselves the 3-man weave over on the Celtics blog podcast. So this is like basically a Marvel level type crossover that we have going right now with the 617 podcast. And, you know, we've got Thor, Captain America, Black Panther, something like that. It's all coming together here on the podcast. But on the other one, we're a little bit more restrictive with some of the things that, you know, that we can say. So here, I like as Adam's holding up a Raphael Ninja Turtle for the camera. Here, we're able to let things fly a little fast and loose. So we're excited to get the shackles off of Adam and kind of let him be able to throw that fastball out there for us.
Yeah, and Adam, I want to give you 30 seconds. Just give us like your unedited, unvarnished take on the Boston Celtics halfway through the season right now. You can let as many swears go as you want.
I mean, I'm fucking disappointed, man. It's atrociously bad. These bastards have made me watch fucking 44 games of basketball and they've fucking been trashed for fucking 41 of them. It's not good, dude. I'm not happy. We've seen some good basketball, I'm not going to lie, but for the majority of time, Ime Udoka has been absolutely dog shit. And I'm very disappointed with what we've seen. Bastards.
That was unbelievable. That's the stuff you don't get on the Celtics blog pod, which is a great listen. It's one of my greatest honors of my life to be part of that podcast. But this is the stuff that we normally hear from Adam before we go live. And then like you can see him put that filter on his brain and over his mouth. So I'm just excited to get this Cussing Cousins episode going. Adam was so upset. He literally left the room.
He needed a moment to compose himself. He doesn't get to have that type of freedom, you know, on a daily basis. So it can be a little bit much. But, you know, while Adam's taking a quick step out here, let's go ahead and actually get everybody set up with the morning box score. So whether you're listening to us live or listening on the podcast, as always, we like to go ahead and set the scene for you when we go live immediately following a game. So let's go ahead and set that up here. Let's get it going. Morning box score. Finally, feels like, I think, Greg, what is this? The second time that we've gone live and the Celtics have actually won a game for us? I think this is the second time.
You texted me right before halftime and you were just like, the post-game live curse, it continues. I was like, yep, I know, man.
Well, here's the thing. Last year, the Celtics really struggled in matinees. They beat the Suns on that, New Year's Eve day game. Beat the Pelicans today, 104-92. So maybe the tides are turning, but Celtics win here, 12-point victory, 104-92 after trailing by 18 in the first half for the Pelicans. Let's hit a couple of their key stats real quick. Jonas Valanciunas, 9-17 from the field. He had 14 rebounds, 4 assists, and 22 points. And then let's hit Brandon Ingram here. He had 15 points and 10 rebounds, 6 assists, but only shot 6 of 19 from the field. After, I don't even want to say a hot start, but a better start than the way they finished. The Pelicans really fell off the last 2.5 quarters. Talk more about that here in just a minute. Flipping over to the Celtics side here, Jason Tatum, who was tremendous down the stretch, 27 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 9 of 18 shooting. big number for him was 9 of 11 from the free throw line today. And then look to Jaylen Brown and Dennis Schroeder, each of them dropping in 23 points. For Jaylen, he went ahead and added 8 rebounds to go along with that on 8 of 17 shooting, 3 of 7 from downtown. For Schroeder, he was 9 of 16, very efficient game, 3 of 5 from 3-point range, 2 of 2 from the line, chipped in with 5 rebounds, 9 assists, back-to-back, very strong games from Dennis Schroeder. And really, when you look at this game as a whole, 86-63 was the score between the Celtics and Pelicans over the second, third, and fourth quarter. So as I mentioned, 18-point lead for the Pelicans about midway through the second. After that, the tide completely turned. Celtics plus 23 the final 3 quarters of the game, including shooting 67% from the field in the fourth quarter. Obviously, one of the weakest points of the Celtics team this entire season has been their fourth quarter woes. This, able to pull through in this game here with the Pelicans, take home that 104-92 victory. Greg, there's a couple different places we can go here to start talking about this game. As I mentioned, Tatum, strong close, Schroeder, another strong game here. Nesmith, if you want to go that route, we got to talk about him a little bit. He ended up having some really nice moments here towards the end of the game. Where do you want to start for this morning box score reaction?
Let's start with Aaron Nesmith. We don't want to start with Schroeder and give Adam a heart attack. So let's start with Nesmith. We've been talking a lot about Tatum and Brown lately. Nesmith played 19 minutes, 18 seconds of game action. He had 5 points, including that great little shot fake and runner off the glass, which is a shot we've seen him hit multiple times over his career. It's definitely something that's in his bag. And then he had that nice dump off to Enes Kanter. He had 6 rebounds. I was just really impressed with the energy that he brought. And I was also impressed with Ime. I'm not going to lie. The fact that he went back to him, not that it's like an impressive thing, but the fact that he actually did it. He went back to him in the second half after that really rough stint in the first half, including that one shot off the side of the glass. So shout out to Ime for going back to Nesmith. He played Nesmith over Pritchard and Langford in that second half. All 3 of them got an opportunity in the first half, and he didn't shorten that rotation too much. He still trusted Nesmith, and he was rewarded for that. Adam, what were your thoughts on Nesmith's play?
Well, first of all, sorry I had to disappear. I have a dickhead neighbor that you've all heard me complain about enough. Hate that bitch. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so I think that the good thing about Nesmith is we saw him attacking closeouts. For me, that was one of the most important things. Like, he's come into the league as a shooter, hasn't really found his foot in this year because Udoka just doesn't like playing anybody under the age of 90. So then what happens there is you've got Nesmith coming onto the floor. He misses a couple of shots. Let me look at, because I missed a bit of the first part of the game, didn't I? You saw me tweet that out. Where is Nesmith on this list? Is he the one that's being hidden by the comments?
I got you. My bad. Let me put that back up.
So he misses 2 threes, but still manages to draw a little bit of attention around the perimeter, attacks the closeout, gets a couple of finishes. I think, as you said, he controlled the glass quite well. I think for me, it's more about just trusting him and giving him minutes, allowing him to find a rhythm, right? I mean, this is the same scenario as what he went through last season under Brad Stevens. Really struggled the first half of the year, came in the second half of the year, played strong, ended up getting some minutes during the playoffs. And I'm hoping that we start seeing that again. I don't know if either of you guys read Jay King's interview with Brad Stevens today on The Athletic.
Yeah, it was a good read.
One of the things that Brad kind of pointed out that really struck me was the fact that he thinks that, even if these guys aren't playing, they're still developing in training and in individual workouts and group settings and stuff. I still believe that, this is the same coach that last year was telling everybody nothing beats game time development, nothing beats playing. So, and I agree with what he said previously more than with what he said here. So playing 19 minutes of the game is really important for me, especially for someone like Nesmith that is a rhythm guy. He needs that rhythm to be able to score, to be able to shoot within like off movement and stuff. So look, man, the box score don't look pretty. He went 2 for 4, both of them being around the rim. They were big buckets, to be honest. They came just after Tatum got hot as well. So, the timing of them was great. Single game plus minus, I'll never put any stock into anyway, so that's fine. It's an absolutely fucking pointless stat. So I'm down, man. I think he had a good game in terms of, this guy's coming in stone cold. Came in and done the best he could.
I feel like for Aaron Nesmith, this is a an eyeball box score. Like you said, it doesn't jump out at you. But if you watch that game, you saw like the energy that he brought. He was the embodiment of Crash Nesmith. He had 6 rebounds where he was really aggressive. Adam, we talked about on the Celtics blog podcast that came out earlier today. Like not enough dunks from this team, not enough going up aggressively. That was pretty damn aggressive on a nice pass from Jason Tatum with that outlet where he gets the and one. So I do think that this was a really nice game for Aaron Nesmith. And to Greg's point earlier, a very simple thing, but Ime just continuing to go with a lineup that was working and guys that were making an impact. It is an improvement. It's something that hasn't always been consistent in Ime's repertoire. And kind of circling back to that Jay King article, one thing that Brad did point out in terms of development not always being seen in games, but being kind of seen or taking place in the background was pointing to Rob Williams. And, you look at the first year Rob was here, didn't play much. Second year, didn't play a ton outside of, I think he mentioned it in the article, that Raptors series in the bubble. He got a little bit of run, but outside of that, didn't play a ton in the bubble. It really wasn't until last year. And then even then he had to get, Brad had to get his hand forced by Danny Ainge to give Rob Williams more minutes. But you've seen obviously his development, and also shout out to our guy, Rob Williams. Looking for a Lob Williams hoodie, sponsored by the man himself. Go to crowworthy.com. Congratulations to him on his second child being born earlier today, which is why he was not in this game. But overall, let's talk a little bit about some of that development. In the comments here, we have Alex Boswell, who is saying, I can't believe I'm saying this, but we need to start Grant Williams. Adam, you and I have actually, all three of us have talked about this at different points about what do we need to do with that starting lineup. Al Horford actually ended up having a decent game after playing 20 minutes in the first half, only played 5.5 minutes in that second half, but his stat line looks a little better. But, I was texting with Greg during the game. It's becoming very, very evident that there's not even a respect really for the Al Horford shot anymore. And he's pretty much open almost every time. So are either of you in line with Alex's thinking that it's time to move to a Grant Williams starting lineup?
Yeah, I agree. I've been saying that for a while. I do understand why Ime is doing it. The defensive numbers for that starting 5 with Horford and Rob have been good all year. But there's something to be said about having that extra shooter on the floor. And right now, although Horford didn't have a bad game today, as you said, I think that it's just not really working on the offensive end. And this team has been plagued by slow starts, over the last couple of years, especially this year. And getting another offensive piece in there, another shooter in there. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be Grant. We can always slide JT up to the 4 and JB up to the 3 and go with Richardson or Nesmith, which is something that, Adam and I were really into at the beginning of the season, getting Aaron Nesmith starting at the 2. So I just think there needs to be a little bit more shooting on the floor in that first unit. Against certain teams, I totally get it. Like against a Joel Embiid, you don't want to put Rob in a position where he's going to get in foul trouble early, battling with Embiid. But in general, I don't like the idea that you have to have like the exact same starting 5 every single game. And it seems like Ime, that's something that he's been stubborn with, is he's just like, no, when I have all my guys, here's my starting lineup. And like Dennis Schroeder's my 6th man. He's our 6th starter. He has shown moments this year, he being Ime, in which he started to make adjustments. I haven't really seen that adjustment with the starting lineup yet when everyone's healthy. So when Marcus is back, it'll be interesting to see what he does with it, because that's another non-shooter on the floor.
Yeah, I think that moving Grant to the starting 5 as well just creates far more fluidity within the offense, Like, I think that the problem with Al Horford at the moment is he's quite slow. I like to use the word plodding. He's aging a little bit. He plods along at his own pace. He can get up and down the floor reasonably well, but he's not as fluid as what Grant Williams is. Grant Williams is going to be able to get up the floor, be able to set drag screens. I don't feel like you could ask Horford to keep up with a guard fast enough to set drag screens in transition. You can run a couple of different options for Grant outside on the corners. You can run some flex offense for Grant to get him driving towards the hoop on the baseline drive. You can ask him to go into a horns and then go horns cross, because he can pop out of that cross onto the wing and score. You're just far more fluid. Grant's also and I've spoke about this numerous times, Grant is also a very much improved screener this season. I feel like his screens are a lot more well-placed, well-timed, and he really holds his ground. Other than, taking a screen is a different story, as we saw against Jonas Valanciunas, but setting a screen, he does a really good job. I think that gives you more fluidity on the second unit as well. With Al Horford, you've got that veteran leadership to steady the ship. You got that two-man game between him and Schroeder, which can take you back to the old ATL days. I just feel like there's a lot more benefits to moving Al to the bench. I just don't know whether, Al said at the start of the year, I'll do whatever coach wants me to do, but ideally I see myself as a starter. So, I just feel like personally moving Grant over to the starting five makes a bunch of sense for me in terms of the way the offense can flow.
Yeah, and Adam, you just mentioned Dennis Schroeder. I want to transition us to talking about him for a little bit because he had a great game against the Bulls, had a great game here today against the Pelicans, and really for great with me when I think of Dennis, that means it's efficient. I think there's going to be moments where you still maybe are, not perplexed sometimes by different decisions that Schroeder maybe you may not agree with them, but I said this the other day. If you look at right now, 9 of 16. 3 of 5 from 3, 2 of 2 from the line. You get 5 rebounds and 9 assists. And what felt like 9 legit assists. I know sometimes his assists feel like kind of bailouts. I felt like today he played just a really solid all-around game, 23 points today. Right now the Celtics have won 5 of their last 6 games. And granted, aside from that Bulls win, and they were depleted to a certain degree, there hasn't been any like standout wins of, this is putting an emphatic stamp on this is our moment, but you still got to get the wins. You got to get who you play, get the wins against who you play. Is Dennis Schroeder's play of late changing your mind as we're, getting closer to 3 weeks away? Is it changing either of your minds about where collectively we've all felt this is trending towards Dennis Schroeder being moved in the next couple weeks?
I'll let Adam go first.
Even the sun shines on, what is it? The sun shines on a dog's ass some days. You know what I mean? Like, you can have a good game, doesn't mean you're a good fit for the team.
Back to back, Adam. Back to back, good games.
You can have 2 good games, doesn't mean, I could tie my shoes while 2 days in a row, doesn't mean the third day I'm not going to trip over. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
great Britishism, the classic Britishism.
Yeah, I'm just saying, dude. I'm just like, yo, at the end of the day, he's a good player. I'm not going to take away from the fact that he's talented, because he is. Like, there's not many guys in the league that can get to the rim at will that are his size that finish at a reliable clip. He's got something to him. He gets guys on his hip. He's speedy. His assist numbers have been good the last 2 games, and not like I've been very vocal on his assist numbers being fool's gold, because defense will collapse and it's like, oh, I've got nothing else to do here. You might as well take the ball from me. It's more at the last 2 games, he's genuinely been out there trying to facilitate. I still don't think you should keep him. I think that Peyton Pritchard gives you more in terms of spacing, in terms of not needing the ball, not requiring it, a lower usage rate to allow things more to develop more organically on the offensive end. You can allow sets to kind of unfold organically rather than forcing the max return 2 late second rounders and you winning because you picked the guy up for nothing in free agency. You didn't have to give up anything. You walk away with 2 seconds. Cool. Where was I? Yeah. So, but I think that at the end of the day, like Pritchard makes everything more organic. I feel like sometimes Schroeder's being force fed on offense, and whether or not he's playing well or not, I'd much rather an organic offense than someone trying to spoon feed me some mashed carrots, which is what watching Schroeder's like.
Well, here's the thing, man. Like, we've been saying for a while, Dennis Schroeder, as long as he's played in the right dosage, and if Ime doesn't like over rely on him, he could be a real asset to this team. You just have to ask yourself, like, what is the ceiling for this team? What is their actual 2022 aspirations? Because if the aspirations are just like getting into the playoffs, then you might as well flip him for a future asset, right? But if this team really starts to put together some great basketball, which is still a possibility, they still have enough upper echelon talent where that's not out of the realm of possibility, especially with Kevin Durant going down for 4 weeks now. Like, there is a chance for the Celtics to at least make a little bit of headway towards maybe even getting out of the play-in. So I just think with Schroeder, it's just like, okay, if we're going to be a team that might still have an outside chance of making some noise in the playoffs, I think he's one of those guys that raises the ceiling just a little bit in a playoff series, because you know that he can do it against, big name talent. He has those games where he can just carry you and drop 40 points. It's just like, what's more important for this team right now, that one game potential of Dennis Schroeder going off, or like the consistency of just getting the right fit for the stars on the team?
I mean, Aaron Neesmith is a possibility to go off. Not Aaron Neesmith, he is a possibility, but Peyton Pritchard, where I'm coming off. Peyton Pritchard, we're talking about a guy that dropped 92 in a Portland Pro AM game. Surely there's going to be NBA teams out there with defenses as porous as a Pro AM game. There is. It's called the New Orleans Pelicans. They're awful defensively. Seriously, though, I think that there'll be games if you give Pritchard the right amount of minutes and play him in the right system. There'll be games where he gives you 25, 30. Won't be consistent, but it'll be there, and it's not consistent with Dennis either. So I personally don't see the point in blocking someone's development to give a veteran more chance to earn money elsewhere at the end of the year. Take your 2 second rounders and be done.
Yeah, and so part of the reason I bring that up is because, February 10th is the trade deadline. We're going to talk a little bit about trade season here in a minute. But, today's January 17th as we're recording. Celtics sit at 23-22. Whole slew of NBA games going on today, but technically without some other results coming in. They're sitting outside of the play-in tournament right now. They're sitting at 11th in the East. However, the next 2 weeks of games line up as such. Charlotte on Wednesday, Portland on Friday, both at home. Wizards on the road, Sacramento at home, Atlanta, New Orleans, both on the road. And then they do have a nice showdown with Miami at the end of the month. So you look ahead to the end of this month, and this is really the next couple of weeks where you have to figure out, are we in to try and do something this season, or are we looking ahead to next year? And that's where, I feel like this is a little bit of a 2 to 3 week trap that the Celtics can find themselves in right now, where they hit potentially a little bit of fool's gold. Everything seems like it's clicking. You play 7 games, or most of the month you play, teams that are sub 500. You catch yourself, maybe 3-4 games over 500 as you head into the deadline. Really feels like you have momentum, and you try to say, you know what, let's hold on to Schroeder rather than recoup 2 second rounders, or if you can really somehow pull off, getting, kind of the Cam Reddish deal that just happened, where it's like a heavily protected first rounder, which is kind of my ultimate goal for trying to get, someone that really may needs a player like Schroeder. And so that's kind of why I'm curious to know if your stance changes at all, because this is a stretch where theoretically the Celtics could pick up some momentum, some wins, and maybe position themselves to get back into that mix, to get to the top of the play-in or maybe outside of the play-in, depending what happens.
Yeah, to me, I think it's about how they're winning and how they're playing, right? If they just squeak out victories over the next 6 games against these teams that aren't very good, then I don't know that you can say, oh, well, this changes my expectations for this team. But if we start actually dominating on the defensive end, as we did, pretty much the whole game tonight outside of the first quarter, I thought we really locked them down. And then we start playing better offensive basketball where that ball is really hopping. And if Tatum, Tatum's been a second half of the year type of player. So if he starts going to that next level and you're like, ooh, Jason Tatum's making that in-season leap, who knows, man? There is still the potential that Jason Tatum plays like a future MVP or a current All-NBA guy. We haven't seen that on a consistent basis, but we've been saying it at the three of us all year, on air and off air. This team is really going to go as far as Jason Tatum can take them. And if Jason Tatum isn't playing like an All-NBA talent, there's really no hope for this team at all in the playoffs. But if he all of a sudden just starts to dominate, then yeah, I'd be open to it.
I mean, my outlook on it is, how much further does Dennis Schroeder get you? Before I get into that, if you check your Twitter inbox right now, you will see the difference in times for when I look at Boston Celtics games. And you will see.
Okay, let me pull that up real quick.
Just to throw your brain around.
Yeah, that was going to be something I actually asked you about, Adam. What's it like getting to, because it's what, a handful of games a year you get to experience in live
this
time?
early, it's rare. So yeah, this is what it's like for me. So those are tip-off times, and obviously, I said this on the Celtics blog podcast yesterday. When I'm looking at it, Celtics play Hornets on Thursday. No, it's not Thursday. They play on Wednesday, because technically, it's only because it's after midnight. And these are early games. If I scroll through and find you some West Coast games, 3:30 a.m. tip-offs, 2:30 a.m. tip-offs. Sometimes I'll wake up and the game's in the midway through the fourth. And I'll be like, oh, I could watch the end of the game live. Nah, fuck it.
Well, that's why, bro. That's why you need to get sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts, man. If they just keep trying, bro. If they can send you those coffee beans, then maybe you could stay up late, or get up early with the team.
Nah, they need to just give me a green card.
Green card sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, just give me in the family green cards, dude. I mean, I don't really want to be staying up late when I could just be in Boston, be in a bar down Dorchester somewhere, telling everyone about these funny Greg and Will guys. But moving on, like I think with Schroeder, the question is, how much further is he going to get you in the playoffs? Like everyone's talking about, oh, you should keep Schroeder if you're expecting a deep playoff run. That's cool and that, but he's not going to win you a series. He might win you a game. He might be a guy that, you know, comes up big once during a series. But and I always kind of go back, and it's a movie quote and it's cliche, but I always go back to that Coach Carter quote when they're like, there goes our 2 leading top scorers from last season. He's like, well, we'll have new leading scorers this season. Because every time you send a guy out, somebody steps up to that plate. And I think that Schroeder, in my opinion, regardless of how well he can score the ball, how well he can play for a game or two, like what we've just seen with the sun shining on his ass, at the end of the day, he's still a net negative. It's still an addition by subtraction, in my opinion, because you're opening up, as I said, and I'm going to keep pushing it, you're opening up an organic offense, which just suits this team far more than what force feeding a guy in a high pick and roll ever will.
Yeah, for sure. And this is something that I actually was kicking around with Will just as a thought exercise, and just something that like has crossed my brain lately regarding Peyton Pritchard, because he's the guy that would probably take those minutes, right? If Dennis Schroeder isn't playing, it's to clear room for Peyton Pritchard. Most likely, maybe you could make an argument that like an Aaron Nesmith gets more minutes in those minutes. But like the question I've been asking myself is, are we sure that Peyton Pritchard really does have the potential that we all hope that he has? Like, he's definitely shown signs of it, but I feel like we might be jumping the gun just a little bit, saying that if Schroeder's not there and Pritchard gets consistent minutes, he's like surefire going to make a big difference in the offense and the flow. I would not be surprised if it did and it immediately started clicking, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we're in a month from now, if we trade Dennis Schroeder and we give Pritchard the minutes, if we're like, ooh, like maybe he wasn't quite as ready for this role yet, and maybe we should have held on to Schroeder just a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be ready for the role yet. It's going to be ugly, but it's ugly with Schroeder. So I'd much rather it be ugly with developmental minutes than be ugly with let's rebuild your value, which is never going to benefit us minutes. That's my outlook on it. It's going to be ugly. I'm not expecting Pritchard to come in and all of a sudden wave a magic wand and the offense is running a lot better. But I think he adds the spacing. I think, you know, the ability he's got of playing off ball, that education he had last year of being an off ball guard, that's going to play into what Udoka's trying to do far more than what Schroeder ever could, because Schroeder's so ball dominant. I'm not expecting it to be pretty, but long term, I think it's beneficial.
That's fair.
And I think with Peyton Pritchard, I mean, for me, at least my personal expectations is that he's a quality backup point guard in the NBA. Like that's kind of like where I see him fitting in. Like I don't think there's any grand vision for me of him being, you know, a starter or a long-term solution, but he's someone that, unlike Dennis Schroeder, you're going to have for at least the next 2 years, you know? So I feel like, you know, to the point that we're kind of all circling around where we're technically not even in the playoffs right now. So if we're holding on to Dennis Schroeder to get a win in the play-in and then losing 5 games to the Nets or the Bucks, like really, what was the point of that? You know, whereas with Peyton Pritchard, I feel like, you know, he's got some ready-made skills for the NBA, specifically his shooting. But you look at like, even there's a play tonight that really stuck out to me. It was on the fast break. It was him and Nesmith. And, you know, one of the things that, Greg, you did that great Coach's Corner breakdown with Jaylen Brown about being on time, on target. I feel like being on time is not there for Peyton Pritchard yet. And he'll see a pass, but he's a step too late with it because he's so, you know, score first mentality. But I think the more minutes he gets, whether it's off ball or being a little bit of on ball or getting out in transition, that's something that is only going to develop with him getting the reps. And so I think of a play tonight, I think it was in the third quarter, where he's on a 2-on-1 break with Nesmith, and he just doesn't realize it in enough time. And then the lane gets crowded and you have to kind of kick it back out and reset the offense. And that's something where, with more reps, I think he'll be able to see stuff like that. And in the meantime, his shooting is going to be what you rely on to create more spacing for the Jays and potentially put someone out there that brings in, you know, true gravity. As much as Grant Williams and Josh Richardson have been shooting the ball well this year, you know, Nekias Duncan and Steve Jones in the dunker spot were talking about this. Like, people still help off them all the time. You know, are people going to be as willing to leave a guy like Peyton Pritchard? And now I know he's a young guy, just like Grant, but he has more of that reputation of a long-term, shooting, someone that can fill the gap shooting. So I think that's where it comes from for me as far as getting more time with Peyton Pritchard. But with that, I want to transition to something we talked about that we're going to do.
Hey, Will,
And
before we transition real quick, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I am. So I do mean to interrupt you.
No offense, but you're a dickhead. But no, I said no offense. So
I mean, I was just thinking this. You said it was cussing cousins. I'm the only one that swore here.
Well, I mean, there is still a limit, and I feel like you reached the limit within like the first 10 seconds of the pod, which is great.
I mean, you told me to. I mean, you said, Adam, swear as much as you want.
Yeah, I signed off on it. No, but I just want to give one more quick plug to the Lob Williams hoodie. Will, as I get this pulled up, do you want to just like give everyone that's listening, kind of like the origin story of this hoodie?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, fucking unbelievable that Rob Williams has been wearing this to the games, and we're 2-0 in the games in which Rob Williams has worn the Rob Williams hoodie. But the origin story of this is so Time Lord is the more well-known nickname. We're on a mission to change that. This is our campaign. This is our campaign to eradicate Time Lord from the vocabulary of Celtics fans, turn that into Rob Williams. And so Greg has never been a big fan of the name Time Lord. I've kind of been, whatever on it, pretty neutral. And so we've always called him Lob Williams internally, like just us talking. And at a certain point,
since his rookie year, like I have tweets from his rookie year where I was calling him Lob Williams, and everyone else called him Time Lord. And I was like, I'm not saying I was the first person to think it's not like a hard nickname to come up with, but it's just like more organic than Time Lord. Time Lord always felt forced to me. Continue.
Yeah, and so we would use that, just the two of us talking, and I kind of assumed, like, how you go to Basketball Reference when you look up somebody, and you'll find that, like, oh, Semi Ojeleye, his nickname is the Ojeleye Factory. Never fucking heard that before. Like, there's just going to be this list of names. I was like, oh, yeah, it's like Time Lord, Lob Williams, maybe Dime Lord or something like that. Like, it was just in that, and I don't even know if it's in Basketball Reference, but I just assumed it was, like, an alternative nickname that other people used, and it wasn't until that we had Amina Smith, shout out to our girl Amina, on the program, and we were asking her, her thoughts, and she had never heard Lob Williams. And that's when the light bulb went on for us, like, oh shit, this is just a thing we say. Nobody else says this. And so then from there, Amina brought it to the pregame show, or was the postgame show. I can't remember when she first dropped it. The Wizards broadcast picked it up when they were playing the Celtics earlier in the season. So the momentum's been rolling. Shout out to our girl Margot, aka Smartwater, coming up with the design. I know we've tweeted it out and we talked about it before. Greg drew a chicken, and then somehow Margot turned it into an unbelievable hoodie that the man himself, the new father, has been rocking 2 games. So Greg's got, for those of you that are watching live, has got the tweet pulled up. Go to crowworthy.com, go to the store, grab a hoodie, grab a t-shirt. If you prefer a t-shirt, you can do that as well. Go ahead and place those orders and get your Lob Williams gear today.
Yeah, and when you get this Lob Williams hoodie, make sure that you get one size up for all you that are going to, buy this gift for yourself or buy this gift for somebody that you love, somebody that loves the Celtics. They do run just a little bit small. So if you're a large, get an XL, get a double XL, so on and so forth. But look at that, man. That hoodie is absolute flames. The fact that Rob Williams has been literally wearing this and like loves the fact that we made this hoodie for him is so cool to me. Shout out to everyone that's been on the Rob Williams train. And we're not taking credit for being the first people to ever think of the nickname Rob Williams, even though we totally are. I know there are other people out there that are on the Rob Williams bandwagon. It's a family. Get that hoodie for people in your family, and let's keep that train moving.
While we're talking about this ultimate awesome product, does it do international delivery, or do I have to pay extortionate amounts of money?
That's a good question. I actually do not know the answer to that off the top of my head. Do you know, Greg?
I do not know. We can find out for you though.
We'll look into that for you, Adam. We'll see if we can get.
Like I want one.
You should want one. It's fantastic. We'll work on seeing if we can get a Cussing Cousins podcast family discount for you. So we'll see if we can make that happen for you.
Because it's the shipping that's gonna hurt me.
Shipping's a beast. I got family in Brazil that I'll say this. I used to send them stuff. I don't send them stuff quite as much anymore because it is a bitch with how much it costs to ship stuff internationally. So yeah, we totally get that. So we'll look into that for you here, Adam. But let's get back to talk about trades here. Trade season is coming up. So what I want us to do here, we're going to go around. We're all going to pick. And this is regardless of, we know that, the context of what's going out is important. That's not what this discussion is about. This is just our wish list. Who's the number one guy that we each have on our trade season wish list to bring into the Celtics? Then we'll talk about that person here. Adam, as our guest, I'm going to allow you to go first, because I think I know where you're going to go, and I'm excited.
Norman Powell.
Love it.
Make the argument.
All day long. I don't need to. I've just said his name. That's the argument. Nah, legit. He's a legitimate 2-level scorer. Everyone talks about. So when you say, for anybody listening, that's like, what's a scoring level? You have there's 3 scoring levels: the rim, the mid range, the 3. So if you're a 2-level scorer, you're either scoring at the 3 and the rim in the mid range and the 3, whatever. There's 2 of the 3 levels. You're actually legitimately talented as a scorer. Norm Powell is a 3-point shooter and mid-range shooter, 2-level scorer. His rim attempts, he's always around about average at the rim, but that means I don't class you as like a 3rd-level scorer, because that when I class you as that, I want you to be better than average for me to class you as a good scorer. Hits the 3 at roughly a 40% clip on his career, hits the mid-range at roughly a 46% clip in his career. Super consistent in terms of his offensive production. Defense he's not a negative. He's the kind of like if you go on to tracking, actually go on to player tracking.
How do I get there?
So go up to where it says profile.
Yeah, go to where it says profile.
Okay. You guys are putting me on the spot here.
Scroll down.
This is
okay,
like that.
Profile.
This is Greg has that panic peer pressure when like you're nasty at parallel parking by yourself, but now you have a car full of 5 people and you have
Find
to
the word
and it takes you
profile.
3 times.
Let me find it for you and I'll send you the link. But yeah, so anyway, it's a 2-level scorer. He's not a great defender, but he's not a negative either. So I feel like as a bench piece coming off the bench, maybe even sliding into the starting 5, he's going to give you a bunch of different outlooks in terms of what you can run, whether you want to run him as a ghost screener in a pop, or a pick and pop guy, or you want to run him coming off Iverson cuts and then scoring off the catch. There's a bunch of ways that you could utilize somebody like Norman Powell. He fits quite nicely within, I think, what's his contract? Does it fit inside the TPE? I'm not sure.
Believe
it's just
it does.
outside.
It's ascending. So I think for this year it does. And I think it gets just outside of that TPE next year. I don't have that pulled up in front of me, but I know I looked that up the other day. I'm pretty sure it does. I think for me, because I'm with you, Adam, I think Norman Powell would be a great pickup. And he's on a team-friendly deal. I think goes like to 16, 18, 19, 20 over the next couple of years. Like, I think that's a very suitable contract for a guy that, over the, like you mentioned, his 3-point shooting, since the 2019-20 season, he's been a guy that's averaging between 16 and 19 points. And he's doing all this each and every time as the non-primary scorer. And I think that's really important when you think about, guys that can come in and play well and accentuate, which is the word that Brad used a lot in that Jay King article. How do we accentuate the Jays? And so you bring in a guy that can shoot. You can bring in a guy that's used to being, the 3rd or 4th scorer on a team, whether it was in Toronto and he's playing off of Lowry, Van Vliet, Siakam, or if he's in, Portland and he's playing off McCollum and Lillard and Nurkic. Like, he's very used to being that 3rd or 4th role, getting his points, getting his scoring efficiently. He's, like you said, Adam, he's an absolute bucket getter. And for me, when I think about a closing lineup where you can have Smart, the Jays, Powell, and, in Lob Williams, like, that's a pretty appealing closing 5 to me. And I, as much as I think Richardson's had a good season, for me, I would prefer to have a guy like Powell. Our defense throughout the season has been really good. Overall, it's been pretty good. There's obviously been, gaps here and there, been pretty good. The offense, completely inconsistent. No idea what's happening night to night. The spacing, some nights it's there, some nights it's not. Sometimes we go ISO heavy, we break down. I think a guy like Powell would give more consistency to the offense, give you a little bit more variability. And that's why I think a lot of times when I think of what do we need, it's with an offensive focus versus a defensive focus. But I think Powell's a great pickup. But Greg, Adam and I have totally built this up in anticipation of your response. And that's what we want to hear. What are your thoughts on Norman Powell?
Before I give my thoughts, Adam, I found it. I used the link that you sent me. It wasn't a perfect hyperlink. I had to copy and paste the whole thing. But I have his efficiency stats pulled up there. So before I tell you why I'm kind of out on Norman Powell, just What were your thoughts on that right there, man? Why'd you want me to pull up this tracking data?
Oh, because it's just prettier than what you were looking at box scores. It's just, we want to go a little bit deeper. There's more. I'm gonna send you some other links in a minute. But look, man, catch and shoot is shooting at 42.5%. Most of his catch and shoot attempts are going to be from downtown. If it's not, then it's going to be around the elbow area when he's coming off a screen or doing whatever the hell the Trailblazers call basketball. So I think that, his paint touches, if you look how minimal those paint touches were, they were like they're very minimal because of the fact that they're running him above the free throw line extended. He knows where his role is. As Will said, he's played alongside some very heavily ball dominant guards, and he's been very successful doing so. So I don't think it'll be much of an adjustment playing alongside two ball dominant wings. It's the same scenario, really. You're just spacing the floor, hitting down your shots when they come, and being at least, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a positive, like a net positive on defense, just a slightly better than average defender.
He's only 6'3", but he plays a little bit bigger. Every time I watch him, I feel like he's like a 6'5", 6'6" guy. But yeah, that's another part.
Dude, I'd be stoked if you can find a way of getting Norm Powell and keeping Josh Richardson and finding a way to blend them both in off the bench. I'd be stoked.
Okay, so here's my thing with Norm Powell, and it's not necessarily like an anti-Norm Powell as a player. It's just like anti-media narrative of what Norm Powell can do as a difference maker for a team. And really it comes back to the trade last year when I thought the Trailblazers like made kind of a lateral move, if we're being honest. Like Gary Trent Jr. versus Norm Powell, I didn't really see too much of a huge difference between those guys to warrant giving Norm the contract that they gave him. I think Trent's just as good as a player. He's 6'6" versus Powell being 6'3". I just like Trent better than I like Norm Powell. So when they got Norm Powell, there were so many people that were just like, oh my God, the Portland Trailblazers got Norm Powell. Like, watch out. It's like, okay, do we really need to watch out for the Portland Trailblazers getting Norm Powell? Because as we saw last year, it didn't make a fucking difference, like at all. It didn't make one bit of fucking difference. So like, if we're talking about Norm Powell being a difference maker, like for who? Is he really going to make a difference for the Celtics? Like, yeah, he's definitely an upgrade. I'm not saying he's not an upgrade, but my question is he worth putting onto our payroll at what is it, like 19 mil, whatever he makes for the next 3 years? Like, I just don't see Norm Powell really work 4 years. Yeah, I just don't see that as necessarily like a positive asset. No, I see it as like a positive upgrade in our roster. Norm also averages like 13 and a half shot attempts per game. Is he going to be getting 13 and a half shot attempts on this team? Is he like that good of a player? You know what I mean? So like, I don't know that he's going to be able to put up the numbers that he's putting up in Portland here in Boston. Very similar. I think he's a better player than Fournier, but very similar to how I kind of viewed the Fournier acquisition last year, where everyone was like, oh, we're getting a 20-point per game scorer. And I told Will on the pod, I was like, well, he's not going to average 20 points. He's going to average like 13 to 15 points because he's not going to have the same opportunities, right? So like, that's my big question with Norm Powell is if we're getting him, I just don't want people to think like, oh, we have Norm Powell, now we're like this better team or like a juggernaut or anything like that. I think that's like a slight upgrade, and it's going to take away from more. If you're like arguing that you want more developmental minutes for Nesmith, I would still just rather give the minutes to Nesmith and like hope that we can work it out with him. So that's my issue with Norm Powell. I don't hate Norm Powell. I definitely don't love Norm Powell. I don't want to trade for Norm Powell if it means that we're like giving up on a young guy.
All right. Well, then, like I said, we're not going to talk about what's going out. This is just our wish list. So who's at the top of your wish list, Greg?
I've said it before. I want Nurkic. I don't think you have to give up much to get him. I think the Trailblazers are, same team, going to be in a sell-off here pretty soon. I think they're going to be tanking. Nurkic is on an expiring deal at around $12 million. There might be like a bidding war for him where you might have to give up a little bit more than you want to, but I think the Trailblazers are going to be more than happy to get rid of him. And as long as we don't have to give up much to get him, I would love to have Nurkic on the team. I think he'd be a huge upgrade over Al Horford. And then you also get the opportunity where I think he's like kind of in that lane where he's not quite Sabonis, but he offers a lot of what Sabonis can offer at like, not a fraction of the cost, but, 12 million compared to like 18 million, whatever it is. And I just think Nurkic is one of those guys where if you get him on the Celtics, you might unlock the potential that we saw out of him a couple of years ago, with the potential of re-signing him over somebody else that you have on the roster. Even though I'm like not an anti-Marcus Smart guy, say Nurkic's number next year is 18 million, Marcus Smart's number is 18 million, then you can make a call. Like, who do I actually like better as a fit? Do I like Nurkic at 18 mil? Or do I like Marcus Smart at 18 mil? And then you could potentially move off Marcus Smart. So I don't want to hear people saying, oh, if we get Nurkic, we're not going to be able to sign him because he's going to cost too much money. It's like, well, you can fucking move other pieces. Like, it's really not that hard. It's that you got to make up in your mind, who do you want to play around the Jays? And if Nurkic is a guy that really accentuates the Jays' talent, I think he's worth a flyer for sure.
I mean, my only pushback is the injury issues.
For sure, yeah.
You know, I think the injury issues are a huge thing. There's a reason that they signed Rob to an extension during the offseason rather than waiting a year. Because even though Rob's value has dramatically risen through the roof this season, the fact of the matter still remains he missed a bunch of time during his first 3 years, and he's still an injury risk even now. And to me, like, he's very valuable at the contract he's on. But would you have felt comfortable giving Rob Williams 18 million or even 15 million? Assuming you qualify Nurkic as a better player right now, let's say 14 mil, would you have been confident there? Like, that's my only pushback is, you know what you've got in Marcus Smart. You know the longevity he has. He's going to miss a few games a year from where he punches something. Rest of the time, he's going to be on the floor. Whereas
here's my thing though, Adam, real quick. So like with Rob Williams, if Rob Williams gets injured, right, because of the style that he plays, let's just say he has like a catastrophic ankle injury or something like that, or he just like, reduces his athleticism by 10%. Like, you're getting a significantly different player for the next 3 years if Robert Williams like reduces that athleticism. Nurkic, I feel like he's kind of at the low end of his athleticism right now, from the injuries that he's had. And he's still like not an unathletic guy on the court. I think that he's one of those guys where his game is skilled enough and he's a good enough shooter where he can still make a difference, even if he is a little bit injury prone. With Rob, it's like, if he gets injured, like, do we even have anything? I feel like with Nurkic, you still have a guy that can make a little bit of a difference on the court. That would be my rebuttal.
Yeah, I feel like Nurk's kind of similar to a guy that we played today, which was Jonas Valanciunas with the Pelicans. And in the sense that, if you don't have those top tier centers, you don't want to ever overpay a guy like he's in those top tier centers, and he's not, because that's a very dangerous place to be for your roster construction. So you want to try and find a sweet spot with those tier 2 guys where you can fit them in that, $10 to $15 million range. And I think Nurk and Valanciunas are guys that for the last couple of years I've really circled in my mind as those are kind of the high-end tier 2 guys that I would love to have on my team, and specifically this Celtics team. So I absolutely see the appeal in Nurk. I think for me, the one thing that would concern me, and ultimately I think you would probably just have to bench, I guess, Al Horford over the next 2 years. I know his contract's only partially guaranteed for about 14 million, which is roughly half of his contract next year. Is there's not really a way to sustainably, work with the 3 of them. Although I guess it's just, maybe Horford moves into the freedom minutes where it's just a random 10-minute spot a game, and then you mostly balance Nurk and Rob, and that's kind of what you roll out there with. But that would be my only concern is trying to figure out like what the, we've talked about Ime's rotation issues quite a bit on this program. So trying to add the new wrinkle of a third quality big man coming into the mix and trying to figure out that over the next year to potentially year and a half. That would be my biggest concern as far as any type of Nurk moves goes. But it's what I'm on board with. It would just depend on the cost and what his market looks like.
I don't know if it's my screen, but if that was Nurkic, might need someone new to line up his beard.
Was it a little jagged?
Let's
take a look at that. Let me pull that up one more time.
A little bit lower.
Yeah, this is how we're really judging if we want Nurkic. Like, what does his lineup look like?
His lineup just doesn't look. It doesn't look even.
It's a little bit of that his right side looks a little bit higher than his left side.
Yeah, for real. I'm just saying, like, if I'm an NBA player, I gotta come correct, man.
Yeah, maybe that's the barbers in Portland. We're slandering the Portland barbershops right now.
I've been sitting here asking myself how Peyton Pritchard gets his fade so smooth, and now I'm asking myself why Nurkic's beard isn't lined up correctly.
Well, maybe Pritchard's fade only got so smooth when he left Portland.
See, now that we're zooming in on Nurkic, I actually think he's a more handsome man than I realized.
Maybe that's the reason to trade for him.
Yeah, maybe, but like you still need your beard lined up correctly. Like you need to come correct, man.
All right,
I'm
I
used
got
to watching Gordon Hayward play. That dude's hair never comes out of place, dude.
dude Adam. When you got your hair going proper, you're basically like the British facsimile of Gordon Hayward out there.
I'm darker haired.
Either way, man.
Similar games.
You're the Bizarro World Gordon Hayward. That's the way I like to see it.
I mean, I don't wish to pain on me, man. He's had some painful injuries, man.
Well, we're gonna see him later this week, so we'll have to check in and see how he's doing. But all right, one last guy that I got here from top of my trade season wish list. It's the same guy I had last year. I want Harrison Barnes. I just want Harrison Barnes so bad. I think he just fits so many needs that we have. He can play the 3, he can play the 4. You know, even if you want to go with, remember when we used to do kind of like the best 5 lineup with Gordon Hayward, you can kind of do a version of that depending on the matchup. You know, he's just a guy that fits in so smoothly. This year, he's averaging 16 points, 45% from the field, 42% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. He's at 6 rebounds, 2.5 assists. And, you know, Adam, you were talking with Keith Smith last week on the Celtics blog podcast, and he said something that I absolutely love. He said around the league, everyone talks about Harrison Barnes, and the best part about him is that he's very happy to be your number 3. But he's also happy to be your 6 or 7, depending on the night, the situation, the game. This guy has championship pedigree. This guy has a nice contract. There's nothing about Harrison Barnes that doesn't just scream to me stability and raising the consistency level. Because that's the biggest thing for me. Like this Celtics team, we've seen them play with some of the best teams in the league, but there's just zero consistency on a night-to-night basis. Harrison Barnes is a guy to me that can level that out, where we're constantly trying to judge, like, should it be Nesmith? Should we be giving, Romeo more minutes? Does Grant need to go in the starting lineup? Harrison Barnes just gives you that quality stability that this team really lacks on the edges. And so he's, for me, is somebody that we talked a ton about last year when it came to the TPE and what we do and how we figure out a way to get him. He's still a guy that has a year and a half left on I think it's about $20 million per year. He's a guy that I'd love to package, Richardson, Wancho, maybe one or two of the young guys and some picks. Go get Harrison Barnes. I think he's would be an absolute positive upgrade over the next year and a half for this team.
Adam, you want to go on that?
Yeah, I was waiting to see whether you went on that before I clicked on mute. No, I mean, for me, you've covered most of it. Well, the only thing I'd say is similar to what I said to Keith when we was on that podcast. There's not very many players in the NBA where coaches are telling them to take more shots, right? This guy's championship pedigree through and through, understands what it takes to be a winning player, understands what it takes to be a team player, and sacrifices some of his own offensive numbers. And, those numbers always correlate some way or another to a contract. So if you're sacrificing numbers, somewhere down the line, you're probably sacrificing a couple of mil. And he does that all for the point of winning. And I think that, the way the Celtics are at the moment, a culture shift wouldn't be a bad thing. Like there's definitely a little bit of a egocentric culture. She's talking to you two, not to me. Bit of an egocentric culture in this roster. Guys calling their own number, looking for their own shots here and there, trying to make things up as they go along. Bringing in someone like Harrison Barnes that's very much team first and team orientated would be in my opinion, a big step in the right direction. When you talk about veteran leadership, there's having veterans and then there's having a Harrison Barnes type guy. I think there's a big difference. So I'd be completely on board. My dream off season is bringing in Harrison Barnes. Trade deadline season would be Harrison Barnes and Norman Powell, but I don't know how you get both of those deals.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big Harrison Barnes guy. One of those guys where he's consistent. I mean, look at the consistency here, man. Like the last 3 years, he's at 11 field goal attempts per game, which is probably roughly the amount of field goal attempts he'd get on the Celtics, probably between 9 and 11. So I don't think you'd see any too big of a decrease in those field goal attempts, which is the concern I have with Powell. He's right around 40% every single year. There is something though with him with that 3-point shot where I don't think he's necessarily a shooter. Right, he can hit shots, but I would never describe Harrison Barnes as a knockdown shooter or a pure shooter, which is probably why you see the game-to-game fluctuation in the amount of shots that he takes. Yeah, he's a selfless player, But even, I mean, I'm a huge UNC guy. So even going back to his time on UNC, there was always like a little bit something off with Harrison Barnes. Like he was super talented. There were all these reports because he was in college right around the same time I was in college. And like my buddy John Cahill, who played at BC and guarded Kendall Marshall, when they played them, like everyone would always talk about Harrison Barnes being like, oh yeah, he's got the smoothest game ever, but there was something off with his mentality where like he never really wanted to be the guy, or like the talent didn't match up with what the expectations were. So my concern with Harrison Barnes is just that if you put him in this role and you expect him to like be a huge upgrade over Grant Williams, like I think he's obviously an upgrade over Grant Williams, but I would actually be really interested to see like how much of a difference there was. I think it's pretty clear that he's the better player. I'm not saying that, but just like, I haven't been able to watch Harrison Barnes on a game-to-game basis in years. I've seen bits and pieces of him. And what I've seen, I've always liked, but there are some games where I'm just like, damn, like Harrison Barnes just ain't there. Like, where's he at? He's been on the court for 35 minutes, hasn't done shit, So like that's kind of my concern with Barnes, is that he does have that tendency to float just a little bit too much. And maybe that's a good thing, as you guys are saying. Maybe it's a guy that doesn't need the ball, doesn't need the shots. But Barnes to me isn't the perfect player, but he is a guy that would definitely be an upgrade.
Well, good part about everyone that we've talked about so far, from Powell to Nurkic to Barnes, we literally play all of them the next week. So this conversation was set up perfectly. We get the Trailblazers coming on Friday, and then next Tuesday, we get to see Harrison Barnes and the Sacramento Kings. So we will definitely have to stay updated with that. Shout out to our girl Smartwater out here. We love you as well. We appreciate all the design work that you do for us. So anything y'all see here, by the way, on the screen right now, design wise, that's all Smartwater. Go check out her Twitter page. I know she's got her links in there to her store. Y'all want some cool ass swag, not just the 617 swag, which you should have, but outside of that, she's got her own store to go ahead and purchase some really cool designs. But we're hitting about an hour here, guys. And I gotta say, this was fucking fun, Adam. Did you have some fun?
Yeah, I'm regretting my my little swearing outburst at the beginning.
we goaded you into it. We dangled a carrot in front of you.
I know.
And it's like a little kid.
Like,
just like, you got a free range.
I got a reputation to uphold, man. This would be where, if it weren't live, I'd be like, yo, make sure you edit that out.
Hey, man. I think, you know what, Adam, like, there are times in which you just got to let the facade down. You're a guy who likes to cuss, and they put the shackles on you sometimes, and everyone needs to see that you're human too. Like you do this great analysis, you write these great pieces, and there are some times where people just seem, like Adam Taylor can also like get super rowdy, and he can just like say some crazy shit. I mean, so like it's okay to let it out.
You're a pacifist. I'm naturally a pacifist.
Do they have this in England? So there's these rooms out here, and I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but essentially
rage rooms.
Yeah, where you get to like go just like beat the crap out of you smash like an old car or whatever. This is your basketball version of that right now when you come on our Cussing Cousins podcast.
Yeah, I like that. But the problem is the rage rooms, no one sees what you do inside.
Yeah, this is very public. We're streaming live. We're gonna push promotion on it tonight and tomorrow morning. So ideally, this is actually going to be heard and be very public. So your therapy is happening for all of Celtics Nation to hear. But you're beloved in Celtics Nation, Adam. So with that, can you tell everybody knows about the Celtics Blog podcast and the 3-man weave? Make sure y'all are always hitting us up and checking us out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But outside of that, Adam, you got so much going on. Tell people about where they can find you, Twitter, Instagram, and anything else that you got going right now.
Yeah, I mean, I got a bunch going, so get your notepads out, people, because this is note-taking time. Now, jokes aside, it's the same handle absolutely everywhere. Search at Adam Taylor NBA. You're going to get me on YouTube. You're going to get me on Instagram. You're going to get me on Twitter. You're going to find me on TikTok. You see right there, 412 subscribers. That was at 327 this time last week, so it's growing nicely. You can also find me over at heavy.com, celticsblog.com, oddtrackerus.com. You can find me here, there, everywhere. I might be doing the hokey pokey. I might be talking proper basketball analysis. I might even just be talking food takes with my guys, Will and Greg. And if you didn't know, then you need to make sure that you're using word of mouth to promote this podcast. I usually throw this on these guys, so I'll do it myself. So make sure you're telling your Uber driver, your school teacher, your college teacher, your side chick, your main chick, your third piece on the side chick, your side, whoever it may
Your
be.
side piece is side piece.
Yeah, your side piece is side piece. Your masseuse, your personal trainer, the person that sells you yachts, the person that rents you boats on the weekend if you're too poor to afford a yacht. I don't know what your life's like. Make sure you're telling all of them to go listen to the 617 podcast with Greg and Will, because these two guys are on the come up.
All right. Our guy, Adam, appreciate you joining us, my friend here. Greg, you want to go ahead and give us any final thoughts, and then we'll send the live stream out with the little clip. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, Greg's going to tell you what you're going to hear.
Celtics are above 500 for the first time since early December when we were 13-12. Let's fucking go. We're on the come up, just like the 617 podcast is on the come up. The Boston Celtics are on the come up. Thank you for everyone that's been tuning in. Make sure you leave a written review for us on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. And for those of you that are here watching online on YouTube or on Twitter, you are not going to hear anything. But you will hear, if you're listening on the podcast, some Black Sheep Optimists, and this one is called The Path. Peace.
Peace.